Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. You probably watched Game of Thrones win all those awards, but Dan and Dave said something really interesting about the spinoff. They're like, we are not going to have anything to do with it on the TV show. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think the actual spinoff is going to be and how it's going to work with Dan and Dave leaving. Game of Thrones has now won more Emmys than any other primetime show in the history of television. They have 2 more seasons, and thus far, everyone's kind of been back and forth on what's going on with the spinoff. But the big thing that happened at the Emmys last night, besides them winning all those awards, were that Dan and Dave were asked point blank about their involvement in a spinoff. Like, are you working on it? What's going on? What's the deal? They said that this show, they were talking about the main show, the current one, this is it for us. And then just kind of said like best of luck to HBO and whatever they wanted to do with the property after they were done with it. So cut to a little while ago at the TCAs, the president of HBO said that they were in initial talks, but they really wanted to just get through the main series, but they were very excited about doing more Game of Thrones. George R.R. Martin separately has come out and said, I have pages and pages of history. I have the Dunk and Egg novels. I have so much material for Game of Thrones that would be great for a TV series. And even before that, going like way back to when the show first started, said that HBO was like, we would love to see 10 years of Game of Thrones at HBO, like as they were working on the pilot, getting things ready to go. And he was like, that sounds great. I would love for Game of Thrones to be on HBO for 10 years. So the idea is that HBO, like the network itself, is going to do a spinoff, but it's not going to happen with Dan and Dave, which is like really good news if you hate Dan and Dave, and really good news if you like Game of Thrones. So I feel like it's good news for everybody, even the people that hate the show right now, because there are just a number of very easy, clear picks for what that spinoff would be. It'd be a prequel series, number 1, but there are just a couple really big events that George R.R. Martin has spent a lot of time developing specifically. Now, there's like thousands of years of history, but some of that isn't as spelled out as other times in history. Like you have the Dance of the Dragons, the Targaryen Civil War, you have the Blackfyre Rebellions, you have Robert's Rebellion. So there are a number of big conflicts throughout history that they'll probably choose to center the spinoff around. Right now, the majority of the people that watch the show but have not read the books are just asking for Robert's Rebellion because they keep referencing it on the TV show. We've seen some flashbacks, so they're like, why don't they just do a TV series for that? That'd be great. They could cast new characters, younger versions of the characters that we see now. We could learn more fully the story of Jon Snow's parents, even though I kind of like the way they're telling the story right now. The problem is that Robert's Rebellion does not involve dragons. There are no dragons alive during that time. But the good news is that whatever time period they choose to set it in, fashion hasn't changed that much. The places that they live, the castles, the locations, they can reuse all those things. I mean, obviously they shoot it in a slightly different way just to make everything seem unique from the main series, but they could reuse a lot of the theme songs. Like they could still use the Rains of Castamere as like the theme of the Lannisters on the show. Like anytime there's a Lannister on screen, it's always kind of playing softly in the background, sometimes louder than others. But like the Starks have their own theme. The main theme song of the TV show, the one that opens with the credits every single week, they could reuse that. So there's just like a number of easy slam dunks for HBO when it comes to prequel series. The real question is whether or not they want dragons on the show, because I feel like you can't do Game of Thrones without like a really big supernatural creature, even if there's a lot of magic going on at the time. You still have to have dragons involved in some way. In The Last Dragon, before Daenerys' dragons were born, died about 50 years before the events on the TV show. So if they literally wanted to have dragons around like they have them around now, the spinoff would have to take place before any of the events on Robert's Rebellion was even close to happening. So the only other workaround to be able to do dragons and also do some of the other big time periods would be to make the spinoff an anthology series where they just dedicate an entire season to a specific period in Westerosi history, and it's like an open and closed story arc for that single season. Then when they get to the next season, it's a completely different time period with different characters, which presents its own logistical challenges for a show that's as sprawling as Game of Thrones with as many characters. And the problem with an anthology show is that you don't have as much time to develop the characters, so the ultimate payoff isn't quite as big. So I feel like whatever the spinoff is going to be, it'll be like 7 or 8 seasons in a single time period, but they'll still use some of the same devices that they use on the main show. Like, you'll still see flashbacks to other periods in time. People will have visions, there'll be an element of magic, there'll be political intrigue, there'll be like a lot of the same elements that you see on the main series, but it'll be a different group of characters. The conflict will be different, and the protagonist will work in a slightly different way. Like, it's not going to be the exact same formula with different characters, but it's not going to be like a Battlestar Cylon thing where this has all happened before, this will all happen again. The best thing I think they could do would be to either do Aegon's Conquest if they wanted to go way back into the past, because they could do some badass dragons. You could do Balerion the Black Dread, or they could do Tales of Dunk and Egg, which would be more contemporary, but still, far enough away from the stuff that's happening on the show right now that it could be different. And then if they wanted to go with the most safe bet, like the safest of bets, they would just do a Robert's Rebellion prequel. So let me know in the comments, what do you think the spinoff is going to be? But for those of you that are asking, like, hey, when are we going to see the spinoff, if it's going to happen? What they'll probably do after they're done producing the final episodes, before they've aired the final episodes in Season 8, but after they've finished producing them, is start developing the spinoff behind the scenes so that they can use the final episodes of the main show to promote the spinoff, or at least let us know when it's coming and what it's going to look like. Like, drop an actual teaser trailer even if they don't have footage ready. But it sounds like everybody involved is just committed to finishing the main series first before they think about what's going on with the spinoff. It's just that HBO has such a winning producing team, aside from Dan and Dave. Like, Dan and Dave have a whole army of people that help produce their episodes, from the people that work on it, from the actual producers, and then you have all the directors, the other people behind the scenes, and then the executives at HBO. Dan and Dave are like a very small piece of the equation, so they're the only ones that have said, we're kind of done with this. I feel like George R. R. Martin would probably jump in and get more involved with the development of a spinoff, and then they try to find other producers to come in and run the show, but keep as much of the current production team, together as possible, just because they're the reason for a lot of the Emmys that Game of Thrones has won. So when you have a team that wins that many awards, you want to do everything you can to keep them from breaking up, keep that family together. So I feel like HBO is going to do everything it can to keep as many of the Game of Thrones people on HBO working on Game of Thrones stuff when it comes time to do a spinoff. But I wouldn't expect them to tell us what the spinoff is going to be about or what time period it's going to take place in until they're getting ready for the last season of Game of Thrones. So you can kind of see Game of Thrones just makes way too much money for HBO for them to think about just completely dropping it when the main show is over. So there will be more Game of Thrones. There'll probably be more Game of Thrones than you ever expected eventually. But for now, the main mission is just closing down the main show in the best way possible. So congratulations to this week's giveaway winner, Das Wolfen. You win a $20 Amazon gift card. Be sure to private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact details. What's going to happen next is tomorrow morning I'm going to post my Ghost Rider Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Episode 1 video. Ghost Rider's debuting on the show, so I recommend you check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. They're crossing the show over with Doctor Strange and a lot of the mystical stuff in the Marvel Universe this season. So I think it's going to be a lot better than previous seasons, but it's a 10 p.m. show, so my videos for it will post like the next morning just because it's so late. While you guys wait for that to post, you can click here to watch the Season 7 teaser trailer again, and you can click here to watch the first couple of minutes from the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Let's high five. I'll see you guys tonight.